Hello, my dears. My name is Joanna, and I welcome you to Johanna Draconis, the Deconstruction of CPTSD podcast. In this episode, we will talk about something that is the question at the core of the illness. When does a trauma become PTSD? And when doesn't it? Picking up directly from last episode, I thought I could continue with it right away as it is connected. This also covers why some traumas cause some people PTSD, but not others. This episode will hopefully help you understand and give you an idea what the trauma core is. So let us talk about it. Before we get into it, let us preface that of course it is not meant as a foolproof method. A trauma is a very individual and personal experience, so there's always wiggle room that might tilt things, or you might not be aware of all the factors. This is supposed to be a receipt of factors that cause it, and with many factors there's just always a room for error. I will introduce the factors that play a role in this and how they are affected. This is not what kind of trauma it is. That is what we talked about last episode. Just explains how big it becomes. As in theory, every trauma basically causes PTSD, sort of. But usually the mind has mechanisms to resolve it on its own. Which is why we get only a PTSD diagnosis after the symptoms last several weeks. You basically only get PTSD, by the official standards, if the trauma is too big for your own system, which is when additional steps are necessary. And this leads us to the factors that determine the size of the trauma. First, we get into the factors of the person affected, and then the factors of the trauma itself. As mentioned, we start with the factors that affect the person itself. First, brain capacity, which I would argue is the most important factor, as it is the backbone of it all. This factor is lowered by stress, tiredness, troubles, hunger, and the like. This factor also determines the speed of your recovery and your ability to tackle PTSD. Second, preconditions. This factor is lowered by having preconditions, be it as a trauma before or any other trouble you keep under wraps. Suppressing something drains you and makes you more vulnerable to future trauma effectiveness. Third, protection. How good was the brain able to shield itself? Did it had earlier experiences how to deal with a situation like this? This factor is lowered when the brain is not able to shield or prepare itself or the like regarding the trauma. Fourth, stability. How stable was the soul construct before trauma hit? Basically, how secure was your character when you got hit by it? People in change or in crisis are more vulnerable. So this factor is lowered by a lack of stability. And second, we get into the factors of the trauma. First, length. The longer, the less energy reserves are available and the less the brain is able to protect itself. Over a very long period of time, it becomes basically impossible not to get PTSD and even get CPTSD in most cases. So this factor is lowered the longer it takes. Second, severity. How severe was the trauma? A pretty straightforward factor, which is lowered the more severe trauma is. Third, complexity. Where there are several factors involved, be it also traumatic experience or just things that take a situation to a worse level. This factor is lowered the more complex the situation is. Fourth, aftermath. Was the brain afterwards able to relocate resources and calm down? Giving the brain some happy impulses and free space after a trauma can help tremendously, as studies have shown. This factor is lowered the more stressful the aftermath is. So to recap, there are several factors that determine the size of the trauma. The lower the factors are, the bigger the trauma, and they do add up easily. As much as many factors are out of our control, having a balanced mind helps you the most. The smaller, the easier the recovery and possibility of healing and curing. The size can vary greatly with so many factors, as you can imagine, but even a remotely sized trauma will cause PTSD, because of the brain capacity factor. Brain capacity is relevant twice, as it determines how much a trauma affects us, aka its size, and also if the resulting trauma is too big and therefore causes PTSD. The more brain capacity available, the bigger the trauma that can be processed. That has of course limitation, and if it takes too long, no brain capacity will be large enough to deal with it. Nonetheless, I hope this answers your question, why some trauma turn for some into PTSD. That was it for today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Hope you are safe and well. And, as always, if you have any questions or feedback and the like, please let me know at contactme@johannatakunis.com. More information and transcripts you can find as usually under johannatakunis.com/podcast. Information regarding therapy you can find under johannatakunis.com/therapy, and links are in the description. I hope to see you next time. Watch yourself and have a wonderful time.